You wake with that familiar tug of uncertainty, wondering how to face what waits beyond the threshold. And you ask if grace can meet you before the clock and the traffic claim your morning. In the stillness before dawn, when a pale line of light tastes the horizon and the breeze brushes the window, you sense a sacred invitation to surrender plans, to be guarded in every step, to let your speech be seasoned, to notice open doors, and to become a quiet, blessed witness. You praise the one who surrounds you, a refuge, a shield, an unfailing guide. You choose this moment to lay aside worry, to entrust schedules and outcomes, to listen for a whisper that steadies you and shapes your path. Psalm 5:12, you are wrapped in divine kindness. Favor is not a wage, it is a gift that encircles you like a shield. You can breathe easily knowing you are not alone. What burden do you release into His hands right now? What desire do you dare to place before Him today? Now, as your heart grows still, we step into the threshold of favor through surrender toward guarded steps, wise speech, open doors, and a blessed witness for this day. You pause at today's holy threshold. You stand at the doorway of your morning, shoes waiting, bag ready, and yet your spirit lingers where light and shadow trade places. You feel the hush of early birdsong and the quiet hum of a waking city. And you allow this thin place to do its work. This brief span where yesterday loosens and the next hour has not yet arrived. You acknowledge your longing to be carried by kindness rather than pressure, to be covered by something sturdier than mood, to be guided by more than habit. You let that longing rise like mist from cool ground, and you name it plainly favor. Not favoritism, not hustle dressed in piety, but holy benevolence, freely given, shaping what you touch. You take a steady breath and picture a gentle mantle settling over your shoulders, neither heavy nor stiff, but supple with mercy. You remember moments when unexpected ease met you. A conversation that softened, a delay that protected, a provision that appeared at the last minute. You let gratitude braid those memories into courage. You whisper that today can be likewise, quietly helped, discreetly upheld, subtly arranged by loving wisdom. You do not demand, you receive. You do not grab, you open your hands. This is the doorway discipline, pausing long enough to let a new center form. So you walk out aligned rather than scattered. You speak simple words and you mean them. Let your kindness go before me. You choose to step away from the script of pushing and proving. You allow gentleness to be your strength as you plan, meet, answer, and decide. You ask for sight to notice small nudges. A seat that becomes a meeting, a detour that becomes safety, a name remembered that becomes joy. You ask that impatience would not be your driver, that comparison would not be your map, that dread would not be your weather. In this threshold space, you trade the old for the new, rush for rhythm, worry for watchfulness, strain for reliance. You welcome the subtle rearrangement of your inner posture. Psalm 97:7. The work awaiting your hands can be established by His goodness. You are not left to stabilize your day by sheer effort. Divine delight rests on you as you begin. You listen. Not for thunder, but for a small direction that fits the next step. Send the message gently. Leave a margin of time. Carry a word of encouragement for the one who seems withdrawn. Keep your tone light where tension threatens to thicken the air. You picture your threshold not as a line you hurry across, but as a gate set in strong walls. You pass through covered passage, not exposed terrain. You hear the latch click with promise, and you go forward under a canopy that will not sag under weather or wear. Now you angle your heart toward the practical. You ready your face to offer calm, your hands to serve, your mind to be attentive rather than reactive. You carry a small, silent blessing for every place your feet will visit. You remember that this is not magic, but relationship. You are held, so you can hold. You are favored, so you can be generous. You are steadied, so you can steady others. When you finally turn the knob and step into the day, the ground feels familiar yet changed. Firm, but kinder. The threshold has done its quiet work, and grace has met you first. You yield ambitions to God's gentle leading. You spread today's schedule like a map on a quiet table, and you feel how edges curl with the heat of expectation. You know the pull to manage outcomes, to fix every variable with a firm grip. Yet you sense a kinder way loosen the fist, keep the compass, and let the wind of the Spirit set the pace. You breathe in the first light, and you tell the morning truth. Desire is strong, deadlines are real, opportunities are many, but guidance is better than momentum. You place your intentions under the soft authority of divine wisdom, trusting that holy foresight reads the terrain better than hurry ever can. You begin with what seems small. You open your calendar and whisper consent, realign meetings, reroute commutes, rearrange conversations. You hold ambitions to the sunlight and ask which ones shine with generosity and which ones glare with ego. You notice how anxiety shrinks when you stop propping up every hour with sheer effort. You picture a shepherd's staff tapping stones, choosing a safer path you would not have seen. You commit to respond rather than force, to choose steadiness over spectacle. Desire is not discarded, it is consecrated. Goals are not erased, they are placed within a larger story that refuses to rush what ripening requires. Proverbs 3:5-6, you lean with your full weight on trustworthy arms, not on shifting understanding. As you acknowledge the Holy One in each decision, a straight way opens where confusion once tangled your steps. Direction becomes gift, not guesswork. You practice holy editing. You ask which tasks deserve attention and which simply demand noise. You release the compulsion to answer first, to speak longest, to be everywhere. You ask for courage to say a timely no, and for humility to accept a redirected yes. You remember that favor often feels like an invisible arrangement. A call arrives at the exact moment you are free. A closed door spares you from entanglement. A slower lane keeps you from crossing paths with harm. You refuse to label these moments coincidence. You choose to read them as choreography. You bring your desires into the open. You confess the one that keeps returning. A promotion, reconciliation, provision for a bill, clarity for a decision, and you entrust it without bargaining. You give God permission to prune what is good to make room for what is best. You ask for a heart that will not punish itself for changing course when new light reveals a wiser option. You let go of the belief that a change of plan is a failure. You receive it as mid-flight correction by a careful pilot who knows the winds far ahead. You adopt a rhythm pause before you respond, breathe before you commit, bless before you begin. You set gentle checkpoints across your day, at the elevator, at a hallway corner, at a quiet sink. where you ask, "Is this still the way?" You learn the art of holy pivoting, adjusting without apology, turning without drama, trusting that obedience is worth more than keeping appearances. You discover that surrender is not passivity, it is alignment. You do less frantic work and more fruitful work. You move with the ease of someone who has stopped proving and started listening. You end this moment with a simple offering. Order my steps, select my words, shape my priorities. You imagine your briefcase or backpack as an altar bag, carrying assignments touched with prayer. Meetings seasoned with grace, errands wrapped with kindness. When you stand to leave, the room looks the same, yet your posture is different. You walk not as a strategist clutching control, but as a steward receiving guidance in real time. The day may still hold surprises, but they do not own you. They become places to witness care. Favor meets you not as a spotlight, but as a quiet river steering you toward what matters most. You walk under protection and discernment. You stand at the doorway and sense a covering over your going out and your coming in, like a soft canopy against sudden weather. You ask that every movement, keys in hand, elevator ride, turn of the wheel, hallway approach, be held within a wise perimeter. You picture your route traced by a careful hand that knows the most merciful timing, a green light that keeps you from an unseen hazard, a brief delay that places you next to the person who needs encouragement, a change of route that spares you from needless friction. You travel not as an exposed target, but as a cared for traveler whose path is considered and kept. You cultivate attentiveness. You learn to notice quiet, alarms the conversation that thins your focus, the offer that feels glittering but hollow, the mood that tries to rush you into careless agreement. You practice small safeguards that build large safety, silence before you answer, gentleness before you correct, distance before you decide. You treat each intersection of the day like a crosswalk. Look for danger. Wait a beat longer than convenience suggests. Step only when the way is clear. You ask for an inner compass that points toward wholeness, not just ease, and toward truth, not just approval. You remember that care is not merely defensive, it is active foresight. You ask for insight to choose better terrain, the seat in the meeting that keeps you receptive, the language that lowers heat, the pause that breaks a pattern of escalation. You ask for a listening ear that hears subtext, wariness behind sharp words, uncertainty beneath bravado, hunger for respect beneath a complaint. So you respond with steadiness rather than retaliation. You guard your own tone, because your voice can either soften a room or harden it. You choose words like shelter, strong enough to hold shape, gentle enough to welcome. The Psalm 91 scene Lennon's 12, holy messengers watch over your path. Care accompanies your movement, not just your prayers. You can step forward without dread, because unseen help knows the terrain that lies ahead. You prepare boundaries, not walls. You decide in advance what you will decline, so you do not have to negotiate in the heat of pressure. You keep confidences, maintain integrity in small invoices and timestamps, and refuse shortcuts that cost your conscience. You ask for clear sight to detect flattery that angles for advantage, and for a spine that stays kind while saying no. You carry a simple blessing wherever your feet land in the line at the cafe, in the conference room, across the screen in a video call. You remember that goodness guards you partly through the goodness you extend. You also tend your body with prudence. You drive with unhurried focus. You cross streets with awareness. You keep devices from stealing attention at crucial moments. You choose rest where fatigue would make you clumsy, water where dullness would muddle thought, and margin where overcommitment would tilt you toward risk. You let gratitude keep you alert. Thankful people notice details, hurried people miss signals. You allow quiet to be your lookout tower. 5 slow breaths before a difficult reply. A brief prayer at a stairwell, a glance at the sky that resets your pace. By the time you reach your next doorway, you sense a subtle confidence that does not swagger. You are not daring trouble to find you. You are walking with a keeper who chooses safe ground. You stay teachable, which is another form of protection, and you stay generous, which disarms needless conflict. You move with the assurance that nothing necessary will be missing and nothing harmful will be allowed dominion. Each step becomes a small amen to the care that surrounds you, and the day opens like a path that has already been walked by kind oversight. You speak life with grace and courage. You feel the morning on your tongue before a single word leaves your mouth, like sunlight warming dew before it lifts into the air. You know how quickly a careless phrase can chill a room, and how a measured sentence can thaw resignation into hope. You choose a quiet readiness, listen first, answer slowly, refuse exaggeration, resist sarcasm, and let kindness carry weight. You remember that timing is part of meaning. A true sentence spoken too soon can bruise, and a necessary correction offered too late can harden what might have softened. You ask for a steady cadence that does not rush, a tone that does not prick, and language that builds a shelter others can step under. You begin with attention. You watch faces the way sailors read skylines, alert to shifts, brows that knit, shoulders that sag, eyes that flicker with fatigue. You let that observation guide your voice lighter when anxiety spikes, firmer when confusion needs a railing, quieter when grief is present. You discover that empathy is not indulgence, it is precision. It selects verbs that keep dignity intact, adjectives that do not inflame, and pauses that make space for another's courage to grow. You learn the small arts that carry large mercy, repeating a person's key word so they know you heard it, asking one clarifying question before offering advice, and ending a hard sentence with a path forward rather than a period of finality. You treat truth and tenderness as companions rather than rivals. You decline the false choice between silence and sharpness. You can say, "That won't work," and still communicate respect. You can name a boundary without building a fortress. You can refuse gossip without shaming the one who brought it. You can ask for accountability without sounding punitive. Your speech becomes a well-lit corridor, clear lines, no hidden traps, and enough warmth to invite movement. You remember that brevity is not coldness. It is mercy to those whose strength is thin. You remember that humor can heal if it never targets the vulnerable. You also allow boldness its proper place. Favor is not fragility. It is strength that serves. When injustice tries to pass as policy, you speak with clean words. When manipulation dresses as charm, you describe reality plainly. When fear crouches behind silence, you give voice to what others cannot say. You do this without theatrical volume, because steady conviction carries farther than shouting. You measure your courage by whether the weakest in the room feels safer after you speak. You let integrity shape vocabulary, so you do not promise what circumstances cannot deliver, and you do not sell what your conscience cannot endorse. Cites Colossians 4:6. Your conversation can be gracious and wisely seasoned. Words that carry care also carry clarity. With such speech, you will know how to answer each person appropriately. You prepare blessings for ordinary moments. You keep one sentence ready for the barista, one for the custodian, one for the colleague who hides in plain sight. You practice use that name specifics because detail proves attention. You offer micro benedictions that stitch morale back together. You handled that pressure with steadiness. Your idea opened a window. Your patience calmed the room. You discover that encouragement is not flattery. It is accurate noticing shared aloud. Even correction can arrive as a gift when it carries a vision of who someone is becoming. You guard your interior because vocabulary grows there. You limit the intake of cynicism that seeds snide remarks. You choose silence over rumor, prayer over complaint, and curiosity over assumption. You rehearse a simple prayer before hard meetings. Temper my tone, guide my phrasing, aim my purpose. You let breath be your metronome. Inhale to gather wisdom, exhale to give it. By the time you step through your next doorway, speech has become sacrament, sound shaped by love, truth sent like light through clean glass, and courage carried without abrasion. Your words move ahead of you like a gentle front, changing the weather of every room you enter. You recognize timing and opportunities prepared. You sense that today holds hinges, not just hallways, places where effort meets arrangement, where a key turns because it was cut for your hand. You slow your pace so you can detect what rush would trample, a passing comment that becomes direction, a quiet invitation that carries weight, a change in schedule that delivers you to a doorstep you did not plan. You let anticipation be calm rather than restless. You ask for awareness to tell the difference between a doorway designed for you and a doorway decorated for distraction. You remember that a true opening does not require elbowing, it invites humble confidence. You test opportunities with simple questions. Does this path align with what is right? Does it let you serve without contorting your conscience? Does it expand your capacity to love rather than shrink it? You examine the atmosphere around an option. Clarity feels like fresh air, while confusion smells of hidden cost. You listen for the tone of invitation, steady, not shrill, patient, not pushy. You learn to read resistance wisely. Some resistance is a closed gate, and some is merely wind at a pass that strengthens your legs for what is ahead. You ask for discernment to know when to knock again, and when to turn and keep walking. You cultivate readiness in small ways so you do not fumble when the handle yields. You keep your materials ordered, your notes current, your heart free of grudges that would sabotage joy at the threshold. You rehearse integrity in the quiet so you will not negotiate it in the bright. You prepare a sentence that introduces who you are without theatrics, so that when a conversation suddenly becomes a corridor, you step in without noise. You bring gratitude with you like a lamp, because appreciation lights unfamiliar rooms and reveals faces that might become companions. A Revelation 3:8. An opening is set before you that no rival can bar. Provision is not a scramble, it is a gift positioned in advance. You can move forward with reverent courage, trusting careful oversight. You also honor the holiness of timing. A doorway can be right, and yet the hour unripe. You ask for patience that does not poison desire, and for boldness that does not belittle caution. You practice the slow art of asking counsel from those who love truth more than flattery. You watch for convergences. A need you can meet, a strength you carry, a nudge that will not quiet, and you move when alignment gathers like birds that suddenly turn in one direction. You accept that some thresholds are for later, and letting them wait is an offering, not a loss. You keep kindness close when you cross into new rooms. An opening held by grace welcomes a gentle traveler. You refuse to step on others to reach the next space. You look for whose hand you might lift as you go. You remember that generosity keeps doors from becoming traps of self-importance. You use any platform as a table, any title as a towel, any access as a chance to honor the quiet labor of those who rarely stand in the light. You celebrate without boasting, and you learn the rhythm of entering with humility and exiting with thanks. If a handle does not turn, you do not punish yourself. You bless the restraint that spared you entanglement. If a latch yields, you enter with awareness, scanning for needs, listening for names, learning the room before you rearrange it. You let your presence speak of careful preparation and cheerful service. By the time the morning tilts toward midday, you have crossed thresholds both visible and hidden, and you have done so with the steadiness of one who trusts guidance more than grit. You walk through what has been prepared, and you leave behind a wake of courage for those who follow. You carry blessing to everyone you meet. You step into the morning aware that your life can be a quiet benediction stitched into ordinary places. The sidewalk, the elevator, the desk, the checkout line. You move like early light washing a window, not demanding attention yet changing how everything is seen. You carry a calm center that steadies hurried rooms, a ready smile that loosens tight shoulders, and a willingness to notice what others overlook. You let your manner be hospitable, your posture unguarded, your pace humane. You arrive not to impress but to serve. An atmosphere bends toward hope when you enter. You begin with attentive presence. You learn names, remember details, and keep simple promises others forget. You offer the seat, hold the door, and make space in busy schedules for someone who needs 2 extra minutes. You choose curiosity over assumption, asking short, honest questions that invite stories to surface. You treat interruptions as assignments rather than obstacles, trusting that significance often disguises itself as inconvenience. You bless with accuracy. Your affirmation names what is true, your thanks names what was costly, and your encouragement names what is becoming. In this way, your words become nourishment, not noise. You practice compassion where edges scratch. When rudeness brushes past, you refuse to mirror it. You consider unseen weights, sleepless nights, a sick parent, debts that nibble at courage, and you temper your reply. You do not excuse harm, but you respond with strength that does not bruise. Where conflict appears, you slow the room with steady tone and clear boundaries. Where anxiety spikes, You anchor conversation with plain sentences and gentle pacing. You recognize that dignity is a kind of shelter you can extend, and that one patient reply can turn a morning from brittle to bearable. You let excellence speak without trumpet. You do clean work when nobody is watching, give credit freely, and move praise downstream to those who carried hidden tasks. You keep appointments on time, return messages promptly, and craft deliverables that reduce another person's burden. You honor staff who serve behind scenes, the cleaner, the guard, the clerk, because respect is a testimony as bright as any sermon. You become known for reliability that eases supervisors and kindness that lifts peers. Your consistency says, "Here is a safe person," and safety invites growth wherever it appears. You carry peace into thresholds that creak. In the commute, you drive with patience. At home, you bring gentleness to the first hello. In crowded spaces, you model restraint that redirects heat. You keep short accounts, confessing quickly when you misstep and repairing the small tears that negligence widens. You ask forgiveness without drama and grant it without reluctance. You refuse to rehearse offense, you rehearse generosity. You become a bridge between teams, between generations, between opinions that need not be enemies. Your presence becomes a path across which solutions can travel. By afternoon's tilt, you have offered more than tasks. You have offered yourself as a living signpost pointing toward goodness. People breathed easier around you, not because everything was solved, but because steadiness arrived. You end the day the way you began it, open-handed, trusting that unseen grace multiplied your modest offerings. You walk back through your doorway with quiet gratitude, knowing that favor never stopped at your skin. It moved through you, crossing thresholds you may never see. And tomorrow, when you again reach for the handle, you will remember you are sent to carry life wherever your feet touch ground. You stand still for a brief moment and let your breath settle. You recall one conversation, one decision, and one interruption from today's path. You ask, where were you most aware of gentle help? Where can you return a kindness received? You picture those faces and release a silent benediction over them. You hold tomorrow loosely, asking for fresh guidance, guarded movement, measured speech, and timely openings. You receive rest as preparation, not escape. You entrust outcomes beyond your reach to careful oversight, and you welcome the simple assignments that shape real influence. Now you abide in quiet gratitude,